Live from New Delhi, watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Kurana, coming up in the next 1 hour. Philippines President Marcos meets Prime Minister Modi on his first state visit to India. Key agreements to be exchanged. National Democratic Alliance MPs adopt a resolution praising armed forces for Operation Sindoor and Operation Mahadev. Hails Prime Minister Modi's leadership during challenging times. India counters Trump's tariffs threat, terms US and EU criticism unjustified and unreasonable, says will take all necessary steps to safeguard its interest and economy. Six years of Article 370 abrogation, a historic turning point in India's constitutional and political journey. Investments, infra upgrades, tourist footfall hike, mark changes in Jammu and Kashmir. And on to the details now. Philippines President Marcos is currently holding a meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Hyderabad House in the national capital. Both the leaders are holding bilateral talks. And later in the day, the visiting minister will also meet his Indian counterpart, Draupadi Murmu. Both the leaders, Philippines President Marcos and Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Hyderabad House in the national capital, and both the leaders are right now doing the ceremonial handshake ahead of the bilateral meeting between the two. Diplomatic relations between India and the Philippines were established in November 1949. Both the countries have since developed a strong partnership across a wide spectrum of areas, including trade and investment, defense and security, maritime cooperation, agriculture, healthcare, pharmaceuticals and digital technologies. While the two countries also engage closely at regional level, including through India's comprehensive strategic partnership with ASEAN, and India's relations with the Philippines are an integral pillar of our Act East policy, Vision Mahasagar, and our vision of the Indo-Pacific. Also, the forthcoming state visit of President Marcos coincides with the 75th anniversary of India-Philippines diplomatic relations. And earlier, the Philippines president received a ceremonial reception at the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. The visiting President Marcos reaffirmed the alliance and the partnership the two nations share in strengthening the bond. The leader also said that Indo-Pacific is the correct evolution of Asia-Pacific.
It is a reaffirmation of the alliance and the partnership that we are strengthening. Where we used to refer to the Asia-Pacific region, we now refer to as the Indo-Pacific region, which is I think, a correct evolution of that understanding because of the global nature of all of politics and of all of trade and all of the economy. And to build upon what we already have had, but certainly to explore the many opportunities that have arisen in the past few years because of the new technologies and the changing state of the global economy and the geopolitics around us now.
After the ceremonial reception, President Marcos also paid his tributes to Father of the Nation, Mahatma Gandhi, at Rajghat by laying a wreath. And for more, we have Akshay Dongre joining us on the visit. Well, Akshay, as we know, President is on a 5-day visit to India. What key objectives, if we talk about, are expected to be achieved during President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s 5-day state visit to India? And how does it align, especially with the 75th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between India and the Philippines?
Well, Lipakshi, the first objective is obviously to bring the two countries together. Now, in what domains can India and Philippines both enhance their operation further, their cooperation and deepen their relationship is on the need basis of the two countries. Now, both India and Philippines are maritime powers. Both have interest in the Indo-Pacific region as well as the freedom of navigation and movement in the Indian Ocean region. So there the interests align. There can be cooperation as far as the maritime economy is concerned, as well as the national security of the two countries, where maritime security plays, the entire role almost as far as Philippines is concerned, and for India as well, to ensure ensure its status as the resident power of the region. It also promotes the freedom of navigation, freedom of movement, freedom of trade in the waters of the Indian Ocean. And to maintain that thing, there can be collaborations on that. There can be collaboration on the defense sector, primarily because Philippines already imports our defense equipment made in India, manufactured in India, and expertise in counter-terrorism operations can deepen between the two countries. But there can be more cooperation in health sector, in education, in tourism, and in sports as well. So there are these key areas of cooperation that can be looked at as far as the two countries are concerned, including the other investment opportunities between the two countries, especially in artificial intelligence and advanced manufacturing, semiconductors, in all of these areas where the two countries can further their cooperation.
Of course, there are many areas where the two countries can further their cooperation. Akshay, also, how does President Marcos Jr.'s visit reflect the broader goals, if we talk about, of India's Act East policy and Mahasagar vision, coinciding with its Indo-Pacific vision in relation to the Philippines?
Well, Philippines is a country that is situated in the Indo-Pacific. If you need to have any kind of understanding of the region or any kind of stronghold on any kind of region when it comes to securing your own assets are concerned, you have to form relations with the resident powers of that region, especially when it comes to Indo-Pacific. There are troubled waters there, South China Sea, disputes keep on happening, Vietnam, Philippines, China, all of these countries already in tussle as far as the sovereignty there is concerned. So as far as India's own vision is concerned, yes, there can be a lot of cooperation. There can be understanding of each other's problems as well as opportunity areas, which can help the two countries take the relationship to the next level.
Right, Akshay, we were talking about the various areas of cooperation. In what ways might President Marcos Jr.'s visit contribute to strengthening strategic cooperation in sectors, especially as far as defense, trade and maritime security is concerned?
Well, all of the points that we have been discussing, most of them are, related to defense and strategy of the region, and it's all about maritime power now. Countries have some of the most powerful assets are deployed in the oceans, including nuclear submarines, nuclear aircraft carriers, big ships. Given the vastness of the ocean. So, as far as any defense cooperation is concerned between the two countries and understanding, it is going to contribute to the strategic goals as well.
All right, Akshay, thank you so much for all those details. And time now for a short break. We'll be back in a while.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, the National Democratic Alliance Parliamentary Party meeting held in New Delhi on Tuesday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and top NDA leaders, including Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, Union Home Minister Amit Shah, attended the meeting. During the meeting, a resolution was passed unanimously by NDA MPs on the success of Operation Sindoor and Operation Mahadev. Condolences were given to the family members of the victims of the Pahalgam terror attack. New MPs were also introduced to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was welcomed and felicitated with a thunderous applause amid chants of Har Har Mahadev after the success of Operation Sindoor and Operation Mahadev at the NDA Parliamentary Party meeting. And now let's take a look at the key highlights of the resolution passed by the NDA Parliamentary Party meeting. Well, members lauded the exceptional leadership displayed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi during these times. His unwavering resolve, visionary statesmanship and resolute command have not only steered the nation with purpose but also ignited a renewed spirit of unity and pride in the hearts of all Indians. The Pahalgam terror attack saddened and enraged everyone, in response of which, on the intervening night of May 6 to 7, 2025, India launched Operation Sindoor. Through military might and resolute leadership, justice was delivered, reaffirming that India does not forget and never forgives terror. It resonated with India's commitment to peace, zero tolerance towards terror, and commitment to do whatever it takes to uproot terrorist infrastructure if circumstances so demand. After the NDA government assumed office in 2014, this has been the norm. The people of India have not forgotten how, prior to 2014, terror infrastructure was spread extensively across India. Bomb blasts across our big cities, be it Patna, Bengaluru, Mumbai, Guwahati, Varanasi, Ahmedabad, Hyderabad, and even Delhi were common. The stage has been greatly appreciated by the people of India. Well, the resolution also highlighted India's approach to such challenges in the future. First, if there is a terrorist attack on India, a fitting reply will be given. We'll give a befitting response on our terms only. We'll take strict action at every place from where the roots of terrorism emerge. Secondly, India will not tolerate any nuclear blackmail. India will strike precisely and decisively at the terrorist hideouts developing under the cover of nuclear blackmail. Thirdly, we will not differentiate between the government sponsoring terrorism and the masterminds of terrorism. And for more, we have Debyendu Model joining us. Well, Debyendu, tell us more about the NDA Parliamentary Party meeting today, as a resolution was passed unanimously by the NDA MPs on the success of Operation Sindoor and Operation Mahadev.
Well, Lipakshi, earlier in the day today, just before the parliament sitting began in both the houses, the NDA parliamentary meeting was convened by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and senior BJP leaders in the parliamentary library building here in the parliament complex itself. The meeting was attended by all NDA members from all the parties that is part of the NDA fold. All the members of parliament from the NDA was present in the meeting. And of course, as soon as Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived at the meeting hall, he was received with a thunderous applause on the success of Operation Sindoor, after which, a resolution was passed by all the NDA MPs congratulating Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the success on Operation Sindoor and also on Operation Mahadev. And also, a resolution was also passed on the fact that there has now been a commitment by the government that befitting reply on any forms of terror on the soil of India would be given by India. Any act of terror will now be considered as an act of war, and such measures have been put in place in part of the resolution. The Prime Minister also congratulated Union Home Minister Amit Shah for serving as one of the longest serving Home Minister of India after L.K. Advani. So therefore, this NDA meeting comes at a time when the crucial vice presidential election is slated. The nomination for the vice presidential election begins tomorrow. The NDA parties will have to now come to a consensus to select the vice presidential nominee of the NDA, while the opposition is also chalking out their own strategy. This meeting is also important given the fact that Bihar election is just a couple of months away from now, and the JDU is also part of the NDA alliance fold, which will contest the election along with BJP in Bihar. But most interestingly, Lipakshi, the vice presidential election is very, very crucial for the NDA at the moment. And, there have been discussions about the vice presidential election. But of course, there's no confirmation as on yet. But having said this, I was speaking to a couple of other MPs as well, who have told me that the Prime Minister also have told them once the Parliament session gets a break, to go back to their constituencies. There's this program called Har Ghar Tiranga. All the MPs will be going back to their constituency and carrying out the programs of the government, which includes the Har Ghar Tiranga Yatra during the period of Independence Day, and also, disseminating the information of the government and about the welfare schemes to the ground. The MPs have been tasked out to disseminate information about the public welfare schemes of the government and to ensure that the public welfare schemes percolates down to ground zero. So therefore, these are some of also the tasks that have been cut out for the MPs from the NDA, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given them clear directions that the welfare schemes of the government needs to be communicated, and if there is any problem that they face on the ground, they should directly communicate with the government.
All right, Dibyendu, thank you so much for all those details in a detailed manner. And moving on, August 5th marks a historic turning point in India's constitutional and political journey. On this day in 2019, the Government of India revoked Article 370, ending the special status of Jammu and Kashmir, a move hailed by many as a step towards integration, equality and development. 6 years on, we look back at the constitutional transformation, the intense parliamentary debate and the positive changes on the ground. Here's a special report.
Article 370 was introduced as a temporary provision in 1949, drafted by N. Gopalaswamy Iyengar. It granted special status to Jammu and Kashmir, allowing the state to have its own constitution, its own flag, and considerable autonomy, except in matters of defense, foreign affairs, and communication. This provision was based on the instrument of accession signed in 1947 by Maharaja Hari Singh after Pakistan-backed forces invaded the region. Over the decades, Article 370 created a unique constitutional setup, one that remained contentious. On August 5th, 2019, a decisive move was made. The government, invoking the powers of the President under Article 371, issued a presidential order redefining the term Constituent Assembly to mean the Legislative Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. With the state under President's rule at the time, Parliament assumed legislative powers and passed concurrent resolutions in the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, effectively abrogating Article 370 and rendering Article 35A inoperative.
अनुच्छेद 370 के खंड 3 द्वारा प्रदत्त शक्तियों का प्रयोग करते हुए राष्ट्रपति संसद की सिफारिश पर यह घोषणा करते हैं कि यह दिनांक जिस दिन भारत के राष्ट्रपति द्वारा इस घोषणा पर हस्ताक्षर किए जाएंगे और इसे सरकारी गैजेट में प्रकाशित किया जाएगा, उस दिन से अनुच्छेद 370 के सभी खंड लागू नहीं होंगे, सिवाय खंड 1 के नामक तदनुसार पढ़ा जाएगा.
It wasn't just a constitutional maneuver, it was a moment of high drama and passionate debate in the parliament. In the Lok Sabha, the resolution to revoke Article 370 was passed with 351 votes in favour and 72 against, with one abstention. The Jammu and Kashmir Reorganisation Bill 2019 was also cleared, paving the way to bifurcate the state into two union territories, Jammu and Kashmir with a legislature and Ladakh without one. A day earlier, Rajya Sabha had also passed a resolution marking an unprecedented constitutional development. In December 2023, the Supreme Court upheld the abrogation in a unanimous verdict, observing that Article 370 was always meant to be temporary. The court also stated that Jammu and Kashmir had no internal sovereignty separate from India, and the Indian constitution now fully applies to the region.
कि 370 से जम्मू कश्मीर का और विशेषकर घाटी के युवाओं का भला नहीं हुआ है. आतंकवाद के रास्ते पर जो युवा गए, सबको मैं तो जिनके मन में अलगाववाद की भी भावना है या 370 के लिए भी जो लोग सोचते हैं कि हमारा कुछ छिन गया, मैं सबको विनम्र भाव से कहना चाहता हूं ये सदन का उपयोग कर कि आप हिसाब किताब तो करिए कि आपको 370 से क्या मिला. रोटी मिली, शिक्षा मिली, सुख सुविधा रोजगारी मिली, आरोग्य मिला, क्या मिला 370 से? क्यों झुनझुना पकड़े हुए हो? 370 है, वो जाने से धीरे धीरे हम घाटी के सभी लोगों को अपने नजदीक ला पाएंगे. उनके मन के अंदर एक नई आशा, नया उमंग, वहां पर जो विकास होगा.
Since the abrogation, the region has witnessed significant decline in terror incidents, stone pelting and separatist violence. The improved national security and increased presence of central laws, the law and order situation has seen marked improvement. For the first time, several central welfare schemes became accessible to people of Jammu and Kashmir, especially to women, scheduled caste and other marginalized communities. Discriminatory local laws were repealed, bringing gender justice and social equity in line with the rest of India. Tourism, which is the backbone of the region's economy, has seen a sharp rise. New industrial schemes like Prime Minister's Development Package and the Industrial Development Scheme have attracted investments and created job opportunities for the local youth. As Jammu and Kashmir embarks on a new journey within the constitutional framework of India, the abrogation of Article 370 remains a watershed moment. A move once called bold and controversial is now credited by many for unlocking peace, prosperity and parity for the region. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, the Indian government has strongly hit back at the US after Donald Trump threatened to substantially raise tariffs on goods from India over its purchase of Russian oil. In a statement issued by the Ministry of External Affairs, the government stated it has been targeted by the United States and EU over its purchase of Russian oil. It said that India began importing from Russia because traditional supplies were diverted to Europe after the outbreak of the conflict. The United States at that time actively encouraged such imports by India for strengthening global energy market stability. The government added that India's imports are meant to ensure predictable and affordable energy cost to the Indian consumer. They are a necessity compelled by global market situation. However, it is revealing that the very nations criticizing India are themselves indulging in trade with Russia. Unlike our case, such trade is not even a vital national compulsion. In fact, the ministry put forth figures of EU's oil trade with Russia, saying in 2024 they had a bilateral trade of 67.5 billion euros in goods with Russia. In addition, it had trade in services estimated at 17.2 billion euros in 2023. This is significantly more than India's total trade with Russia that year or subsequently. Now, European imports of LNG in 2024, in fact, reached a record 16.5 million tons, surpassing the last record of 15.21 million tons in 2022. The government also mentioned that Europe-Russia trade includes not just energy, but also fertilizers, mining products, chemicals, iron and steel, and machinery and transport equipment. Talking about the US, MEA said that America continues to import from Russia uranium hexafluoride for its nuclear industry, palladium for its EV industry, and fertilizers as well as chemicals. Thus, the Indian government categorically stated that in this background, the targeting of India is unjustified and unreasonable. It also clearly stated that like any major economy, India will take all necessary measures to safeguard its national interest and economic security. And still to come on DD India News. US strikes deal with Rwanda to deport migrants amid Trump's aggressive immigration push. Thailand and Cambodia begin preliminary talks in Malaysia to finalize border ceasefire framework. And 6 killed in El Teniente mine collapse. President Boric orders probe in mourning.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lupakshi Khurana. And moving on to the West Asian updates now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will convene his security cabinet on Tuesday to decide on Israel's next steps in Gaza following the collapse of indirect ceasefire talks with Hamas. It comes a day before a UN Security Council meeting on the fate of hostages still held in the Palestinian territory. Last Saturday, during a visit to the country, US Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff had said he was working with the Israeli government on a plan that would effectively end the conflict in Gaza. But Israeli officials have also floated ideas, including expanding the military offensive in Gaza and annexing parts of the shattered enclave. The failed ceasefire talks in Doha had aimed to clinch agreements on a US-backed proposal for a 60-day truce, during which aid would be flown into Gaza and half of the hostages Hamas is holding would be freed in exchange for Palestinian prisoners jailed in Israel. The envoy's visit was seen in Israel as very significant, but later on Sunday, the Israeli official signaled that pursuit of a deal would be pointless, threatening more force. Now, Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar suggested on Monday that the gaps were still too wide to bridge. And Canada delivered humanitarian assistance through airdrops to Gaza, again accusing Israel of violating international law. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation reported that it was Canadian Armed Forces' first humanitarian airdrop over Gaza using their own aircraft. The Israeli military said 120 food aid packages for Gaza's residents were airdropped by 6 countries, including Canada. The other 5 were Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Germany, and Belgium. Canada said last week it plans to recognize the state of Palestine at a meeting of the United Nations in September, ratcheting up pressure on Israel as starvation spreads in Gaza. While Canada also said on Monday that Israeli restrictions have posed challenges for humanitarian agencies. Also, Finland's President Alexander Stubb held a phone call with US President Donald Trump to discuss Russia-Ukraine conflict and supporting efforts for an immediate ceasefire on Monday. Trump has threatened to impose new sanctions on Russia and buyers of its oil, including India and China, unless President Vladimir Putin agrees to end the conflict by Friday. Both leaders also discussed ongoing talks about icebreakers. Early in June, Trump said that the U.S. is negotiating to buy 15 icebreakers from Finland as part of his broader plan to acquire up to 40 icebreakers to strengthen Arctic security and support resource development and logistics. Meanwhile, U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matthew Whitaker said that he expects more nations to fund U.S. arms for Ukraine following the Netherlands' announcement of €500 million to the scheme.
You're going to see a series of announcements in the coming weeks. When we announced this facility that allowed our NATO allies to buy U.S. equipment and provide that to Ukraine for their defense, we had a lot of our allies raise their hand and line up. A lot of them are coming together in groups to pool their money and their resources together to provide these armaments and munitions. And so, it's the whole purpose of NATO.
Well, Brazil's Supreme Court on Monday issued a arrest order for former President Jair Bolsonaro, who is standing trial for allegedly plotting a coup. Justice Alexandre de Moraes said in his decision that the right-wing firebrand did not comply with judicial restraining orders imposed on him last month. Moraes also banned Bolsonaro from receiving visits, with exceptions for lawyers and people authorized by the court, and use of a cell phone either directly or through third parties. The restrictions on Bolsonaro were imposed over allegations that he courted the interference of Trump, who recently tied steep new tariffs on Brazilian goods. The former Brazilian leader is facing charges that he conspired with dozens of his allies to overturn his 2022 electoral loss. Bolsonaro's press representative confirmed the House arrest order and restrictions on using a cell phone. Well, the United States on Monday condemned a decision by Brazil's Supreme Court to put former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro under house arrest. In fact, the department's Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs said in a post on X, and I quote, putting even more restrictions on Jair Bolsonaro's ability to defend himself in public is not a public service. Let Bolsonaro speak, unquote. And moving on, the United States and Rwanda have agreed for the African country to accept up to 250 migrants deported from the U.S. as President Donald Trump's administration takes a hardline approach towards immigration. Under the agreement, Rwanda has the ability to approve each individual proposed for a resettlement. Those approved will be provided with workforce training, healthcare and accommodation support to jumpstart their lives in Rwanda, giving them the opportunity to contribute to one of the fastest growing economies in the world over the last decade. President Donald Trump aims to deport millions of immigrants in the U.S. illegally, and his administration has sought to ramp up removals to third countries, including sending convicted criminals to South Sudan and Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. Rwanda has in recent years positioned itself as a destination country for migrants that Western countries would like to remove, despite concerns by right groups that Kigali does not respect basic human rights. And preliminary talks between Thailand and Cambodia, defense officials started on Monday in Malaysia ahead of a key ministerial-level meeting on Thursday. The ceasefire, which came after 5 days of border clashes between Cambodia and Thailand, was reached at a meeting in Malaysia last Monday, with help from the United States and China also observing. Malaysian Armed Forces Chief General Muhammad Nizam Jafar said both parties are now in the final stages of discussion over a proposed terms of reference and the formation of an interim defense attaché monitoring force, which would precede the establishment of a formal ASEAN monitoring team. The secretariat-level meeting, hosted by Wisma Perwira by the Malaysian Armed Forces, brings together 54 representatives from both countries in an effort to lay the groundwork for lasting stability after weeks of deadly border clashes. And moving on, a fire beneath a commuter train at Newport Station in Jersey City disrupted rush hour services along several lines in New Jersey on Monday. Well, a video shot by a commuter showed people inside a smoke-filled train car rushing towards the exit as a fire broke out beneath the train. Several individuals were treated on site for smoke inhalation. The incident led to significant delays, with multiple path lines between New York and New Jersey temporarily suspended. The cause of the fire is currently under investigation. And moving on, Vivek Ramaswamy, who ran for president of the United States, now seeks to become governor of Ohio. He held a town hall on Monday focused on a fight that broke out in the streets of Cincinnati on July 26th. The gathering was convened by Ramaswamy to discuss public safety following the brawl, which injured 6 people and went viral on social media. The biotech entrepreneur told attendees he was asking for their vote because we need leaders who are going to act with a spine. After the video of the fight circulated widely online, Governor Mike DeWine ordered the Ohio State Highway Patrol to provide additional manpower to support the Cincinnati Police Department. The gubernatorial election in Ohio is scheduled for November 3rd, 2026. And in Chile, family members and friends of the miners who lost their lives in the recent El Teniente mine collapse gathered to bid farewell to the victims in a memorial ceremony on Monday. All 5 workers at the copper mine who were trapped in a collapse last week have been found dead. The total death toll stood at 6, including 1 person who died at the time of the accident. The collapse was triggered by one of the largest tremors ever recorded at El Teniente, with an impact of 4.2 magnitude quake. It is still unclear if the cause was a natural quake in the highly seismic country or mining activity. While Chilean President Gabriel Boric vowed justice for the miners and declared 3 days of mourning, he stated that Chile has completed the rescue phase and is now focusing on investigating the cause of the incident. Emphasizing the need for full transparency and accountability, Codelco's chairman announced an international audit to ensure transparency and identify the cause and responsibility for the incident. Over 190 countries will try to break an impasse and reach an agreement over the next fortnight on the first ever global plastics treaty that will create a legally binding framework to end plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. This will be the second installment of the 5th meeting of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, Inc. 5 of the United Nations, which will take place in Geneva, Switzerland. Negotiators will pick up from the previous meetings in Busan, South Korea last December, where talks had collapsed over critical and unresolved issues. Plastic pollution has reached even the most remote corners of the planet today. 416 million tons of plastic are produced annually, of which only 9% is recycled, while the rest leaks into the environment. Well, UN Environment Programme Chief Inger Anderson stressed the urgency of reaching a meaningful deal, warning of a catastrophic impact of plastic pollution, especially on marine ecosystems.
I want an effective treaty. I want a treaty that ends plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. That's why we're here. We're not here to not get something or to get something that's meaningless. But the reality is also, and this is where 40 years in this business, the impacts are here and now. And we have to stop this from spiraling out of control.
While Moldova has become the 107th member of the International Solar Alliance, the instrument of ratification was handed over during the meeting to the ambassador of Moldova to India, Anna Taban, in New Delhi on Monday. The International Solar Alliance is a global initiative launched in 2015 by India and France at COP21 in Paris. It has 124 member and signatory countries. The alliance works with governments to improve energy access and security worldwide and promote solar power as a sustainable transition to a clean energy future. ISA's mission is to unlock investments in solar energy while reducing the cost of technology and financing it. On 6th of December 2017, 15 countries signed and ratified the ISA Framework Agreement, making ISA the first international intergovernmental organization headquartered in India. And still to come in DD India News Hour. We'll get you how India turned the tables around thrashing England by a 6-run victory at the Oval. Novak Djokovic withdraws from Cincinnati Open again, prioritizes fitness ahead of US Open title bid. And 5 years ago, on this day, Prime Minister Modi laid the foundation stone for Ram Temple in Ayodhya.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. And moving on to some business news now. The European Union will suspend 2 packages of planned countermeasures against the United States tariffs for 6 months following a deal with the United States. A European Commission spokesperson said in a statement that the EU will continue to work with the US to implement the tariff agreement reached on July 27th. The statement said that to achieve this goal, the European Commission will take necessary measures to suspend the retaliatory tariffs against the US originally scheduled to take effect starting this Thursday for a period of 6 months. The suspended retaliatory tariffs include a response to the US tariffs on EU steel and aluminium exports and a response to the baseline tariffs implemented by the Trump administration and the proposed auto tariffs. US President Donald Trump and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen held an informal meeting in Scotland, the United Kingdom, on July 27th. After the meeting, Trump announced that the US and the EU had reached a consensus on a new trade agreement. And Tesla has granted CEO Elon Musk shares worth about $29 billion in a new pay deal aimed at keeping the billionaire entrepreneur at the helm. The company described the interim award of the 96 million new shares as a first step, good faith payment to honor Musk's more than $50 billion pay package from 2018 that was struck down by a Delaware court last year. Musk can claim the new award if he remains in a top executive role for another 2 years and a court does not reinstate the 2018 package currently on appeal. He is to hold the shares for 5 years and can buy them for $23.34 per share, the same as the exercise price of the 2018 award. Tesla will also put to vote a longer-term CEO compensation plan at its annual investor meeting on November 6th. And more than 3,200 union members who assembled Boeing's fighter jets in the St. Louis area and Illinois went on strike on Monday after rejecting a second contract offer the previous day. Boeing Defense said it was ready for the work stoppage and it will implement a contingency plan that uses non-labor workers. According to the company, the rejected 4-year contract would have raised the average wage by roughly 40% and included a 20% general wage increase and a $5,000 ratification bonus. It also included increasing periodic raises, more vacation time and sick leave. And on to some sports news now. India scripted a remarkable comeback to pull a famous 6-run victory at the Oval, denying England the series win. In the last session of Day 4, India managed to pick 3 wickets. And on Day 5, India took the last 4 wickets in under an hour to bowl England out for 367. Siraj was India's hero, dismissing Jamie Smith, Jamie Overton and Gus Atkinson to complete a 5-wicket haul. Siraj produced a brilliant Yorker to dismiss the last English batter and earn India the narrowest ever Test win. With this result, India levelled the thrilling 5-match series 2-2.
Test cricket should be as it is. It's in my opinion, it is the most rewarding and satisfying format. You work the hardest to be able to get a win. And the best thing about this format is it always gives you a second chance, which none of the other formats give. So if you keep working hard, if you keep doing the right things, there is always a second chance.
You know, toe-to-toe pretty much, well, for 25 days. You know, 2 teams, 2 very good teams who have, you know, thrown everything at each other, left nothing out there. You know, so I guess from a cricket fans' point of view, you sort of go 2-2 is probably fair. Obviously, we're disappointed now to have not got the result that we wanted to give us a series win.
Well, in the Canadian Open men's semi-final, Germany's Alexander Zverev will face Karen Khachanov on Thursday. The world number 3, Zverev won the tournament in 2017 but has failed to go past the quarter-final stage since then. Zverev reached his 21st Masters 1000 semi-final by defeating the defending champion Alexei Popyrin in the quarter-finals. Meanwhile, Karen Khachanov advanced to semi-finals for the 3rd time following a win against Alex Michelsen. Khachanov is the 7th man to reach 3 or more semi-finals at the event this century. Khachanov will have to dig deep against Zverev in the semis as the latter leads the overall head-to-head 5-2. And former Wimbledon champion Alina Rybakina and teenager Victoria Mboko have advanced to the semi-finals of the Canadian Open. Rybakina reached the semi-finals after her quarter-final opponent Marta Kostyuk retired in the 2nd set with a wrist injury. Meanwhile, Mboko secured a surprising straight-set win over Spain's Jessica Bozas Menero to reach her first WTA 1000 semi-final. 7 of the top 10 players were eliminated before the quarter-finals, opening the door for such upstarts as 18-year-old Mboko. Both players will clash in the semi-finals of the tournament on Thursday. And the 24-time Grand Slam champion Novak Djokovic has withdrawn from the Cincinnati Open for the 2nd consecutive year. The Serbian tennis icon opted out of the US Open warm-up tournament following consecutive semi-final exits. At the French Open in Wimbledon, Djokovic had stated earlier that he wants to preserve his body and stay fit for Grand Slams. Djokovic is chasing a record-breaking 25th Grand Slam title but hasn't come close to lifting a Grand Slam title this calendar year. Djokovic also withdrew from Cincinnati last year after his triumph in a singles event at the Paris Olympics. The US Open will take place from August 24 to September 7th in New York City. Well, on this very day, 5 years ago, Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone for the construction of the Ram Temple at the Ram Janambhoomi in Ayodhya. Let's take a look at the historic event. August 5th, 2020, Ayodhya, Uttar Pradesh. A historic date. On this day, 5 years ago, Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone for the construction of the grand Ram Temple. This marked the auspicious beginning of the construction of the magnificent. And meanwhile, let's get you some visuals from the Philippines President Marcos and Prime Minister Narendra Modi's delegation-level talks at Hyderabad House in the national capital. We're getting you visuals from the Hyderabad House, where the visiting dignitary, President of Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., is having delegation talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the moment. Both the leaders held bilateral talks, and later in the day. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.
QR कोड स्कैन करो, 5000 का कैशबैक पाओ। वाह, दिल बन गया।